welcome to Canadian Flight Center. We're going right now for a flight, IFR flight from Boundary Bay to Victoria in the Seneca 5. And in this video, we're going to see how we're going to set up the GPS for this flight. So I will start by turning the master on. And usually we go to that stage when we have already our clearances and the run-up completed. At this point we will just do the GPS setup and go through it step by step. So now we load our GPS, and you can see we have GPS 530 and 430, the Garmin, and amongst other equipment, this will be our main navigation tools on that trip. While we are waiting, just to mention, the Seneca 5 has Garmin 430, 530, Storm Scope TCAS on 530. It has also a weather radar and all the de-icing equipment for known icing conditions. It also has the inbuilt oxygen system. So it's safe to fly for a short trip like from Boundary Bay to Victoria, or we can go IFR in more serious conditions over the mountains. So here we have the first screens, and we verify that the database is not expired, and we press OK. We press OK here. Now we have to verify that we have the CDI comparing to the instruments. Half left, out of view, half up, out of view 2, and then see on RMI 135, OBS, and direct track, so everything looks okay. And here comes our moving map. To set up the flight plan, we are going to press Flight Plan. We already have our first waypoint. To go into Flight Plan, we push for the cursor, and from the nav log that we have, we know that our first waypoint is HUH. Actually, it is White Rock and that HUH, but I know that White Rock is part of Boundary Bay departure procedure, so all I need to enter here is our next point, which is the HUH. In setting up the GPS, there are 3 main steps. First, we enter the waypoints, then we enter the procedures, arrivals, departures, approaches. And last, we go through all the flight plan and clean up what is not needed. So I'm entering the waypoints right now. I navigate between the positions here with this outside knob, and I change letters by twisting the inside. So H, U, H, and I press enter. After that, we file the Victor 495, so it will be, it's the airway that goes from HUH to CYYJ. That will be my next one. CYYJ. Enter. And from CYYJ, the Victoria VR, we will go to Victoria. CYYJ, Victoria International. And press enter. In fact, this is a training flight, and in Victoria we will do an approach, we'll do a missed approach, and we will return back to Boundary Bay. The problem is that I cannot actually enter the return trip here and have more than one approach at the same time. We'll get to how we actually deal with it. First, let's enter our trip from Boundary Bay to Victoria, that portion of the trip. By the way, you can see on Garmin 430 here the TCAS indicates some traffic. Right now we're still on the ground, it's not a concern. But in the air, this will be a warning sign for us. So back to our flight plan, we have set up all the waypoints, the main waypoints. Now we go back and we will enter the procedures. So I scroll between the waypoints with the outside knob, I go back to Boundary Bay, and when I have it selected, I will press PROS for procedures, and I will select the departure. I press enter. Today the runway active is 12, I select that and press enter, and I verify boundary bay 3 departure, runway 12, via Y-truck, load, I press enter. See, we don't have boundary bay anymore, we have boundary bay, runway 12, Y-truck, HUH, YYJ, and then CYYJ. In Victoria, we need actually two things. We need arrival and we need approach. So I'm going to select procedure, and we will select the arrival first. So I press procedure, arrival, and I will select the APAS-4 arrival. I checked already, the active runway is 09, so APAS-4. Boost or keying does not really matter, because we will delete those points anyways. Those are points way far away. We will pick up that arrival only close to its end, only the last couple of last waypoints. So I select boost, runway 09 as we checked, and CYYJ APAS-4 arrival via boost, runway 09, load, yes. We go back to the flight plan, and we see that we have already our arrival. We go to the very end and find CYYJ. We need to now select our approach. So procedure, and we need the approach. We want to fly an ILS approach today. So we select ILS 09. We will do the transition via Brani. This is a waypoint. If we select vectors, we are still relying on the ATC. If our radio fails for whatever reason, with the GPS we will be able to navigate via Brani, and that's what we are going to do. So CYYJ ILS 09 via Brani, enter, and we have a reminder that GPS is used for guidance only. We have selected our procedures now. The last step of the GPS setup will be going through the trip and making sure that everything that we have here actually should be here. So we have runway 12, Y-truck, so far so good, HUH, YYJ. Now see what's happening after. We have Victoria VOR, and then going to Victoria Airport, and then to Booth, which is somewhere halfway between Nanaimo and Port Hardy, so we definitely don't need this waypoint. And we have a few more points after that, and we arrive back to YYJ. So what we are going to do, we will delete everything between this YYJ and this YYJ. So to delete a waypoint, we select it and press clear, get a confirmation, yes, enter. Now make sure you do not delete the whole arrival. If the arrival is selected and you press clear, you will delete the whole arrival with all the waypoints. We don't want that. So we select the waypoint booth, clear, enter. Stave, clear, enter. Lane, YVR, AP, clear. And now we have YYJ. We can delete one of them. Here we go. So from HUH we are going to YYJ, then we are going to Calco, and from there we pick up the ILS 09 approach. FA stands for FAF, MA the missed approach point, and the missed approach hold at active pass. If we want to, we can select CZBB because that will be our final destination. We cannot enter the approach in boundary bay yet. However, we can be prepared for our return trip independently from our initial trip on the Garmin 530. We're going to set up the Garmin 430 right now for our return trip. We're going into flight plan, and the first waypoint we enter will be CYYJ. Enter. So we have from Victoria to Boundary Bay, and we're going to select the procedure. We don't need to select the departure from Victoria anymore because we will be on the missed approach. All we need is the approach in Boundary Bay, and we will select our nav 30 approach via SVAM. And Boundary Bay, RNAV 30, SVM, load, enter. And again, we need to clean up that flight plan. Going from CYYJ, we're not going to go to Boundary Bay and then back to SVM. So we need to actually delete that Boundary Bay, clear. And so we go from CYYJ to our initial approach fix for the RNAV 30 approach. And usually we get vectors from the ATC for that. Good dot, Atmo, Axano, and then in case of the missed approach, we would go back to SVM for a hold. Here we go. So we have our trip from Boundary Bay to Victoria. We can exit the flight plan now, and we have the magenta line, and we have the return trip from Victoria back to Boundary Bay, which we will activate when we are in the missed approach and get there's instructions for return back to Boundary Bay. Have a safe flight.